The office buzzed with its usual late-evening exhaustion, keyboards slowing, chairs scraping, tired coworkers drifting toward the elevators. I was wrapping up the last of my reports when I heard heels clicking sharply across the floor. Elena Morozova. Everyone always straightened when she passed, as if her presence alone could determine their future. She wasn't cruel, just unreadable, polished, and impossibly distant. I avoided eye contact out of instinct, but she stopped right beside my desk. "Alex," she said quietly, almost too quietly for someone of her authority, "stay after work. I need you." Her tone wasn't commanding. It was strained. A tension I'd never heard before. My heart thudded in confusion. Why me? I was the newest hire, practically invisible. She normally communicated with me through emails so short they felt like telegraphs. Of course, I stammered. As the clock hit 7 o'clock, people grabbed their bags. "See you tomorrow," someone mumbled. Another coworker gave me a sympathetic look, as if staying late with the boss meant punishment. But the moment the last set of footsteps faded and the elevator dinged its final departure, the atmosphere changed. The giant open office suddenly felt too large, too silent, too hollow. Elena emerged from her glass office again, no longer the confident executive the company worshipped. Her shoulders were tense, her eyes flicking nervously toward the windows as if expecting someone to appear there. She approached me holding a thick beige envelope, gripping it so tightly the paper was crinkling around her fingers. "Lock the door," she murmured. I blinked. The main door. Yes. And hurry." Her voice carried urgency, fear, even. My skin prickled with cold nerves as I slid the door's bolt shut. When I turned back, Elena was pacing, breathing unevenly. Finally she held out the envelope to me. "Alex, what I'm about to show you," she swallowed hard. "You must tell absolutely no one." Her hand shook as I took it from her. The weight of the contents felt wrong, heavy, like something that could ruin lives. I opened the envelope expecting documents or reports. Instead, glossy photos spilled onto the desk, photos of Elena, taken from behind bushes, across streets, through crowds. In every picture, the same man in a black coat lurked nearby, watching her. My throat tightened. "Who is he?" I whispered. Elena closed her eyes, as if afraid the answer might reach the dark windows behind us. Elena kept pacing, her heels tapping a rapid, anxious rhythm against the polished floor. Every few seconds she glanced toward the entrance, then toward the darkened windows, as though expecting the man from the photos to burst in at any moment. I stood frozen, still holding the stack of surveillance pictures. The fluorescent lights hummed above us, too bright, too artificial, making everything feel like a scene in a thriller I never signed up for. "Elena," I finally managed, "how long has this been happening?" She stopped pacing. Her arms folded tightly, almost as if she were trying to hold herself together. 3 days, she said. I didn't want to assume it was anything serious at first. You know how the mind plays tricks after a long week. She forced a short, humorless laugh. But then the photos appeared in my mailbox. At home. At home. Whoever was watching her knew where she lived. I felt my chest tighten with an instinctive protective urge, strange, considering this woman terrified half the office. "Why come to me?" I asked quietly. "I mean, I barely know you." For the first time since I met her, Elena looked vulnerable. Her eyes softened, not weak, but tired, like someone who had been carrying a secret too heavy for too long. "Because you're observant. You listen. And you're not involved." "Involved in what?" She hesitated. "I don't know yet. And that's what scares me." We stood in silence for a few moments. Outside the window, the sky had deepened into a dark violet. The city lights shimmered below, but the office felt isolated, as if floating far above the world. "I'll walk you to your car," I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice sounded. She shook her head at first. "No, it's too dangerous. He might be out there." Her voice cracked again, tiny, almost undetectable, but enough to break through the armor she always wore. "I'm not letting you go alone," I insisted. She finally nodded, a small movement, but filled with silent gratitude. We gathered her things in tense silence. When we stepped into the hallway, our footsteps echoed unnaturally loud. The building, nearly empty, felt like a labyrinth waiting to swallow us. The air outside was colder than I expected, biting against my skin. Elena clutched her bag tightly, scanning the dark parking lot. She pressed the unlock button on her remote. Her car blinked from across the lot. "Let's go," she whispered. But before we even reached the halfway point, a sudden roar shattered the quiet, a car engine revving aggressively from the shadows across the street. My head snapped toward the sound just as bright headlights flared on, blinding us for a moment. The car lurched forward. Elena gripped my arm with both hands, her nails digging into my sleeve. "That's him," she gasped. The vehicle sped toward the exit, not toward us, but fast enough for us to see the silhouette of a man behind the wheel. A shiver ran down my spine. By the time I thought of taking a picture, the car had already vanished into the night, leaving only the fading echo of its engine. And the terrifying realization that this was no coincidence. The next morning, the office felt strangely hollow without Elena's sharp presence. Normally she arrived before everyone, her heels clicking down the hallway like a metronome of discipline. But that day, her office lights stayed off. The blinds remained closed. Her chair sat untouched behind her pristine glass desk. By noon, the whispers began. I heard she had a breakdown. No, she quit. HR had a meeting with the CEO last night. Someone said she was escorted out. People loved to talk, especially about the one person who intimidated them most. But beneath the gossip was something else, a shifting energy, like the building itself sensed that something had gone deeply wrong. My phone buzzed on my desk. I expected a message from a coworker. Instead, unknown number, meet me at the river park. Don't tell anyone. My stomach dropped. I didn't hesitate. I grabbed my jacket and left. The river park was nearly empty, just a few joggers and an old man feeding pigeons. The water shimmered under the midday sun, calm and indifferent. I spotted Elena standing near the railing, wearing dark sunglasses and a simple coat that looked borrowed, not like her usual elegant wardrobe. She looked like someone trying not to be noticed. When she turned toward me, I realized she wasn't just nervous, she was exhausted, shadows beneath her eyes, her shoulders slumped in a way I had never seen. "You came," she murmured, voice barely above the soft breeze. "Of course I came," I said. "What happened? Why weren't you at work? And why this place?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small black flash drive, gripping it between her fingers like a fragile secret. "Alex, if something happens to me, give this to the police. Not to anyone from the company. Only the police." Her hand shook slightly as she pressed the flash drive into my palm. My heart pounded. "Why are you talking like this? What's on it?" Her lips tightened. "Evidence. Things I shouldn't have found." I waited for her to explain, but she stared out at the water, avoiding my eyes. "Elena, talk to me," I urged, gently touching her arm. Her composure cracked just a little. "I don't know who I can trust. Not even the board. Not even the people above me. I only know one thing. Someone is watching me because they want this." She tapped the flash drive in my hand, to disappear. A cold breeze swept between us. It felt like the river stole her words and replaced them with dread. "Elena," I whispered, "I'll help you. But you have to tell." My phone buzzed again, interrupting me. Another unknown number. "You shouldn't have looked, Alex." My blood froze. I hadn't opened the flash drive yet. But someone thought I had. Someone was watching me, too. I looked up sharply, scanning the park. Every bench, every tree, every passerby suddenly felt suspicious. A jogger glancing our way made my heart stutter. A parked car with tinted windows felt like a threat. "Elena," I said, swallowing the fear tightening my throat, "did you send this?" She shook her head slowly. "No. That means they're watching you now too." A quiet, terrifying truth settled between us. At home, the flash drive felt like a burning coal in my pocket, too dangerous to keep close but impossible to let go. My apartment was usually silent and comforting after work, but that night every creak of the floorboards, every distant car horn, every whisper of wind through the window blinds made my nerves jolt. I sat at my desk staring at the flash drive under the lamp. Elena had warned me not to open it. She had looked terrified when she said it. But someone already believed I had. And if danger was coming either way, I needed to know why. My hands were trembling as I plugged it in. The screen lit up with a single folder labeled, "Do not ignore." My throat tightened. Inside it was a mess of files, PDFs, spreadsheets, email screenshots, scanned documents. Hundreds of them. I clicked the first one. Bank transfers. Massive sums quietly moved offshore. Another file, contracts with suspiciously vague, consulting partners. Then travel documents, receipts, encrypted spreadsheets that must have required high-level clearance to access. It didn't make sense until I opened a zipped folder titled, Level A, Restricted. My breath choked. The documents inside were signed by our CEO, the man who smiled on every company brochure as if he were the guardian of honesty and innovation. The transactions linked to shell corporations. Payments to private contractors, large amounts under coded names. And then the worst. Photos. Not of Elena this time. Photos of people I recognized, upper management, board members, meeting with unfamiliar men in discreet locations. Faces too serious. Conversations too secretive. Some pictures were taken at night. Some were grainy. All of them felt incriminating. I scrolled faster, panic tightening around my chest like a clamp. This wasn't just corporate fraud. This was organized, deliberate, and dangerous. A knock on my door made me jump so hard I nearly yanked the flash drive out by force. I held my breath. Another knock, louder this time. I crept toward the peephole, heart pounding. No one was there. My phone buzzed on the desk, making me flinch. Unknown number. We told you not to open it. The air left my lungs. My stomach dropped to my feet. I spun around, scanning the apartment corners like something could emerge from the shadows any second. My hands were shaking violently now. I unplugged the flash drive and shoved it into my pocket. I didn't know where to go, only that I couldn't stay here. That's when another message came through. Not a threat this time. I'm outside. Open the back door, Elena. I rushed to the small back entrance, the one barely anyone used. When I opened it, Elena stood there soaked from the rain, hair clinging to her face, breathing as if she had run the whole way. Alex, she gasped, pushing inside, they know I gave you the drive. We don't have much time. Rainwater dripped from her coat onto my floor, each drop falling like a countdown. Who knows? I whispered. Everyone involved, she said, voice shaking. And they're coming for both of us. Before I could ask anything else, a sudden thud echoed from the hallway upstairs, heavy, unmistakable, like someone kicking a door open. Elena's eyes widened. They're here. For a moment, neither of us moved. The entire apartment seemed to hold its breath with us. Then she grabbed my wrist, her grip desperate and trembling. Run, Alex. And in that instant, everything became real. This wasn't a corporate scandal anymore. This was survival. Rain hammered the streets as we sprinted into the night, the downpour soaking us instantly. My shoes slapped against the pavement, water splashing up my legs, but I didn't dare look back. The sound behind us, the slam of a door, the muffled shouts, was enough to keep my heart racing like a trapped animal. Elena's grip on my wrist was tight, almost painful, but it kept me grounded as we dashed toward the alley behind my building. Her breath came out in sharp, panicked bursts, the kind of fear I'd never imagined seeing from her, the woman who commanded conference rooms without blinking. Keep going, she urged, her voice trembling over the roar of the storm. Thunder cracked overhead, lighting up the sky in a violent flash. For a split second, the alley around us lit up too, slick bricks, overflowing gutters, and two dark figures appearing at the end of the street behind us. My blood ran cold. They're coming, I yelled. Elena didn't look back. She pulled me toward the side gate of a neighboring building, the metal rattling loudly as she forced it open. We squeezed through and stumbled into a narrow path behind a row of shops. The wind howled, carrying the sound of footsteps, more than one pair, closing in. Alex, this way, she said, pointing to a dim stairwell descending into a basement corridor. I hesitated. It looked like the kind of place where people disappeared forever. But the shadows behind us moved. We didn't have a choice. We ran down the stairs, our footsteps echoing off the concrete walls. At the bottom, the corridor stretched out in both directions, illuminated by flickering lights. Elena chose left. I followed without thinking. The air smelled of wet cement and rust. My pulse hammered so loudly I could hear it in my ears. After several turns, we reached a door marked storage, employees only. Elena shoved it open, pushed me inside, and quietly closed it behind us. The room was dark except for a small window near the ceiling. Dust swirled in the air. For a moment, we just stood there, our backs pressed to the wall, listening. Footsteps thundered through the corridor outside. Voices, low, angry, searching. Check every room, someone ordered. Elena squeezed her eyes shut. Water dripped from her chin. Her breathing was shaky but controlled, she was trying hard not to break. In the darkness, she leaned close to me, her whisper barely audible. I'm sorry I dragged you into this. You didn't, I murmured. I chose to help. Her eyes glistened, fear, relief, and something softer buried beneath. But the moment was cut short by the sound of a doorknob rattling 2 doors down. They were checking the hallway room by room. Moving closer. 1 door. Then the next. Then, silence. My heartbeat stopped. Elena reached for my hand and held it. Not out of strength, but out of sheer terror. Then footsteps retreated, fading, growing distant. A heavy door slammed somewhere far above us. We didn't move for several seconds. The silence felt unreal. Finally, Elena exhaled, her shoulders dropping, her voice a fragile whisper. Alex, they won't stop now. They know we have the evidence. They'll keep looking. I nodded, trying to steady my breathing. Then we have to stay ahead of them. She looked at me, not with the cold professionalism I'd always known, but with raw, frightened trust. Outside, a siren wailed through the city, echoing through the storm. Come on, I said, opening the storage door a crack. We can't stay here. Elena stepped beside me, drenched, trembling, but determined. We slipped back into the corridor, disappearing into the shadows together, no longer boss and employee, but 2 fugitives clinging to each other in a fight far bigger than either of us had imagined.